along with the Roxborough Development Corporation. We are recording this meeting so that we can keep track of what people say, and if we have to go back over it, we will do that. So you have to acknowledge the recording in order to stay in the meeting, I think. We're here tonight to discuss a new proposal for the real estate at 6174 Ridge Avenue. And we have quite a presentation for you here tonight. But before we get started, I'd like to do a quick public service announcement. Central Roxborough Civic Association, as you might know, is the civic that serves this part of Roxborough. And every year we elect a new collection of officers to help guide our organization. We are comprised of district representatives and officers. District representatives serve from various areas of the neighborhood, and we have openings on that you'll see on our website if you go look for several district representatives, but we also have openings in the upcoming year for 2 officers who have served out their full terms and who will be rolling off the board. Our recording secretary, that is the person who takes minutes of meetings, and our corresponding secretary, the person who sends you those delightful email messages every month that help you keep up to date on what we're doing. Both of those positions are going to be open in the coming year unless we can find folks to fill them. So if you would like to serve in either of those roles or as a district rep, please use the chat to let us know, or drop us an email at info.crca.us. And one of our board members will get back to you and chat with you about what the responsibilities are and how to get involved. So thank you. If you're willing to help us do this crazy work of running the Civic, we would welcome your help. So tonight, we have a meeting that I think will be conducted in approximately 5 parts. So the first part, you're going to hear from our zoning co-chair, Celeste Hardister, who's going to tell you a little bit about the background of this project and how we got here tonight. After that, you're going to hear a presentation from the development team, including Eric Marshall, the project lead, and Richard Stokes and Lance Saunders, the design team, who will walk you through the design of the project. And after that, the third part of the session will be a Q&A, so that you as an audience can ask your questions of the design team. Any questions you have specifically for them, that would be the appropriate time to do that. We would prefer if you don't interrupt their presentation while they're giving their presentation, but rather ask those questions during the Q&A. After the Q&A, we're going to close that part of the meeting, and we will ask Eric and his team to leave the room so that we as an organization, with you as our members and neighbors, can talk privately and have a discussion amongst ourselves about this project. Once that discussion is over, we will then conduct a straw poll of everyone who is in attendance, and that straw poll will help guide our board in making a decision about whether to support, to not oppose, or to oppose this project as proposed tonight. So I'd like to ask for your indulgence while we think about a couple ground rules for this. There are going to be a lot of people in this room at times tonight, so I'd ask that you either ask your questions in the chat, and if you do that, the chat is going to be read by our folks here on this side, and then they will feed the questions up to our panel for answers. Or you can raise your hand using the reaction button at the bottom of your screen, and we'll recognize you to ask your questions one at a time. Please leave yourself on mute until you are recognized to speak, because this room could get pretty noisy if people leave their microphones on in the background. I'd like you to keep your comments brief if you could. There are a lot of people, and I think a lot of people are going to want to be heard tonight. Please don't interrupt other speakers while they're speaking. So we'll try to keep this orderly and in turn. I will make sure that we will not close this meeting until the last hand has been recognized and everyone has had a chance to speak. That might be all I have for ground rules right now. I hope we can get through this. We've allocated a total of 2 hours for this meeting, although I'd be delighted if we could be done in an hour and a half. So let's try to see where it goes from here. So to start out, Celeste, would you like to give us some background on this project?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. This project by MGMT Residential first came to us in mid-2022 and was presented to our RCO meeting on August 4th of 2022. The proposed plan at that point would have 82 units with 17 parking spaces. It was a by right project, meaning that no zoning variances would be involved. And it required our RCO review because it would have more than 50 units, thus creating the need for it to go through the city's civic design review process. The CDR process allows the community to give input, but not to take a position of support or opposition. The project combines 3 parcels into one, from the 5 and 10 building up to, but not including, the restaurant on the corner, and 2 commercial buildings on Leverington. Concerns expressed at the August 2022 meeting included the loss of the mural, the impact on the pocket park, the post office, and the loss of parking. Significantly, an overall concern was expressed about the importance of this location, that this is the heart of Central Roxborough, and that what happens here is key to its future. We made the point that this location is a great opportunity to do something commercially smart, aesthetically pleasing, something we could feel good about. To the credit of this developer, they listened to what we had to say, and they contacted us after that RCO meeting and said they would like to work with us towards an improved outcome if we would work with them and support necessary variances that might be involved. Councilman Jones arranged for an initial meeting with MGMT and the CRCA and Roxborough Development Corporation, RDC, in his office. And we credit him with not only being receptive to a revised approach, but offering to help in regard to the city-owned parking lot if changes there could help make the project better. Tonight, before seeing new plans, you will see the designs for 2 earlier plans that were presented to the city CDR committee in late 2022. The CDR process is not like the ZBA. It does not grant or deny zoning permits. It simply offers input. The 2022 plan presented to the CDR is permitted and could go forward to be built. However, since then, MGMT has unhesitatingly worked with the CRCA and RDC throughout 2023 to arrive at the new plans you will see tonight for an alternative to the permitted plans. They have been ongoingly open to our ideas, even bringing on an architect we recommended, Stokes Architecture, whom you will meet tonight. After nearly a year of work, we think what you will see tonight is a better outcome and an exciting one in many dimensions. I'll turn it back over to you, John.
Thanks, Celeste. So Eric Marshall and Richard Stokes and Lance. Eric is the developer on this project. Richard and Lance are the design team. This is your presentation now.
Okay, great. Well, thank you everybody for taking the time to meet with us. Just to reiterate what Celeste had said, I mean, this has obviously been a very important project. It was made very clear to me when we were going through the initial process of the presentation of the original CDR, you know, the opportunity that existed here. You know, for a lot of these things, you know, you kind of build within the constraints of what zoning permits and what you're allowed to put there. And essentially the project that we have approved is what, you know, zoning code permits, including the overlays that already exist within the project. Having said that, you know, I know the importance of the mural and items like that. And I said, you know, reached out, you know, to the CRCA and the RDC to say, what does it look like that really works? And let's really put our heads together and understand. And I feel like there's been a lot of compromise that's been made in order to make something that's feasible. I mean, we care a great deal about Roxborough. We do recognize that this is a cornerstone, an important location of Ridge Avenue. And, you know, being able to go through this process and make sure it's the most successful project again, we were limited to what we could, put there. It was only 8,000 square feet of commercial, very limited parking because you're not allowed to do underground parking garage. A lot of these things were constrained by the zoning code. And so I think, today is really truly a culmination of a lot of, the sacrifices and opportunities that we could make to ameliorate this project and make it something that could be successful. That's just my presentation, I guess, so to speak. But I will let Rich and Lance, who we brought on specifically as part of the feedback about the design and aesthetic and presence that we want to have for a building of this significance in this location of Roxborough. And they can kind of impart on you some of the design features, some of the changes that were made to setbacks for parking, exterior finishes, and some of the logic and the juxtaposition of why we made these changes and how it enhanced the building versus the project that had that's already approved. So I'll turn it over to Rich and Lance and let them walk you through what we've been doing the last year.
Great. Thank you, Eric. We were really pleased to be selected to help with the design of this project. I, for one, am very familiar with Roxborough, and I'd like to turn this over to the presentation over to my partner and designer, Lance Saunders. If you want to open screen, share screen.
Yeah, so I'm gonna share my screen and I can go through the presentation. So yeah, so as everyone's kind of mentioned, this has been kind of a year-long effort to kind of redesign this project from what was previously presented and take an opportunity to really think hard and long about what we can do to improve this building in terms of the way it interacts with the site and the context that surrounds it in a way that's sensitive to all the things that we want to be sensitive to. So pedestrian access, the kind of scale of the building relative to what's surrounding it, and really just kind of making this fit as nicely into the urban fabric of Roxborough as possible. This is such a kind of key block in such a major kind of retail corridor on Ridge Avenue that we wanted to really be sensitive to that and give something back to the community in a lot of ways. So in that spirit, I think we've made a lot of concessions and moves in the design that have helped give some of that space back to the sort of pedestrian level of the community, and not just kind of, build what was, essentially before something that was a little less sensitive to those kind of needs of the people of the community. So I'm going to run through this presentation, and I think probably the first thing I'll show to you guys is the floor plan, the site plan rather, which kind of goes through a lot of these changes right off the bat, which will help you kind of understand the difference between the previous plan and what we're presenting now. You've got your site plan of the existing lots. So Ridge Avenue and Leverington Avenue are the main street intersections of the site. So everyone knows what we're talking about. Some site context of what we're talking about here. So in the top left, you've got that view from the corner of Leverington and Ridge looking at the block. Bottom left, you've got the rear end of it, the parking lot facade, where there's currently some parking and some loading. To the bottom right, you've got the Thai restaurant on the corner. And then on top of that, you've got a view looking down Ridge Avenue. So if you don't mind, I'm going to actually fast forward to the plan so we can kind of talk through that a little bit. So a lot of the moves that we made for this related to how we can give more sidewalk back to the pedestrians and also solve some issues in the building with how things are handled such as trash removal, loading for commercial spaces, and entrances to parking. So one thing that is new about this new plan, there's actually underground parking, which we wanted to propose as a way to alleviate parking off the street and help people people in the neighborhood deal with parking, because everyone knows that's always an issue when there's new construction. So underground parking gives us 71 spaces now, as opposed to the previous scheme, which only gave us 17 surface parking spots, so a lot more parking. And as you can see from this site plan, the blue areas are kind of the commercial, or excuse me, the circulation for the first floor. So what we've done is we've created a new entrance for the apartment building, which is closer to that Leverington and Ridge Avenue corner. And what we've done is actually set that entrance to the apartment building back. So that actually creates a little bit more generous of a sidewalk at that corner entrance. And then the rest of the circulation through the building kind of works its way in a clean way back to the parking lot area, where you'll have your trash and your commercial loading for all the commercial spaces. So what that does obviously is gets that stuff off of the street itself. So all of that is now tucked back in behind the parking lot, and for the most part out of sight for your typical street pedestrian. As you can also see, the red areas marked on the site plan are commercial spaces. So in the previous scheme, there was a lot of units, residential units that were on the ground floor. What we've done is gotten all of those off of the ground floor and added all of this commercial space. And so before, I believe there was about 7,000 square feet of commercial space. We've now brought that up to 21,000 square feet of commercial space. So for those who don't know, typically a lot of the work we do ground up residential buildings as well, but we do a lot of hospitality work. So we've kind of designed this in mind for some of that commercial space to be taken over by restaurants. We want to really kind of improve, again, the pedestrian life of the surrounding neighborhood, and bring in hopefully tenants that help to improve the urban fabric in the area. So what we've done with the commercial space is really designed it with an eye towards what we would be designing as restaurant designers as well. So a lot of that has to, again, do with taking out trash. It also has to do with how we exhaust the building. We want to keep all that stuff out of the street level and done in a way that makes it as invisible as possible and makes the experience for the people in the community, the pedestrians, the residents, to have as pleasant an experience as possible. So the main idea with that commercial space is that the two kind of bottom tenants would potentially be restaurants. And the idea there is that also then opens up onto the Pocket Park. So what we want to do with the Pocket Park, to kind of segue into that, is actually open that up. So we want to actually create a little bit more Pocket Park. And so what we've done is we've carved out a little bit of our building on that ground floor level to add some square feet to the parking lot. I can pull up that number. Sorry, I don't have it memorized.
It was like 1,300 square feet added.
That's it. Thank you, Eric. Yeah, so you can see at the bottom of the screen here where we've extended that Pocket Park by about 1,300 square feet. And what we can do there is have those commercial spaces open up onto the Pocket Park again, and really just create a lot of energy and yeah, like desirable kind of street presence into the Pocket Park for, again, the community to kind of feel a little bit more connected to this building, and a little bit more public space is added to the Pocket Park. So yeah, and then in terms of how this building is actually sited on the site, we've actually taken a lot of care to extending our setback. So we've pulled this building back on all sides in an effort to create wider sidewalks, to create more public space, and to create a little bit of a nicer sense of scale to the building with its surrounding context. One of those main moves is on the Leverington side, where we've actually pulled the building back considerably to match the face of the two houses next to it. And I want to point out not the porch, but the face itself. So we've pulled it back considerably by about 17 feet to create a little bit more of a, again, sense of scale with our building and the building next door. We don't want to feel too overbearing or feel like we're blocking any natural light for these people as much as possible physically. So we've taken great care to kind of create some setbacks. So Leverington, Ridge Avenue as well, we've pulled the building back an extra 5 feet to again create a little bit more of a generous sidewalk. We fully acknowledge that Ridge Avenue is a major economic corridor and it's a major commercial spot for Roxborough, and there's a lot of great businesses on that block, and we want to create as pleasant of a pedestrian experience as we can. So we've gone out of our way to shrink the building for the sake of, again, creating a more pleasant pedestrian experience and making this building fit more into the community and work better for the community itself. Yeah, so I'll go back now through some of the renderings and kind of show you, like, going upwards, what we've done in a lot of these, in a lot of the design as well. So here's that corner view from Ridge Avenue and Leverington. And what you can see here is kind of the main bulk of the building. Right in front, you can see the entrance to the residential lobby and the building at large. So there you can see where we've actually set that glass storefront of the entrance back by another about 3 or 4 feet behind the building itself. So we're creating an even larger sidewalk kind of plaza to enter into that building and make it feel a little bit more recessive and less daunting onto the sidewalk. Then from there, what we've done is we want to kind of express the structure of the building a little bit and kind of bring that down to the street level. One thing that's kind of a pet peeve for me as a designer and somebody who designs restaurants is when we're designing a restaurant for a commercial space and it's like just a full wall of glass, it doesn't really work well for a lot of commercial spaces, actually. It's good to have walls or kind of dropped down areas in those spaces. So what we've done with this main part of the building on Ridge Avenue, we've dropped the kind of structure of the building down to the street level, created a little bit of a rhythm. So you have these openings for all of these commercial spaces. It also creates a really nice opportunity for building lighting, which again, we kind of placed at that pedestrian level to help kind of enhance that pedestrian experience. And then with the facade itself, what we've done is we've set back a lot of the kind of openings that you see as Juliet balconies or as full balconies as you see in the corner. And the idea there again is to create a little separation and a little bit of variation in the facade, break up the heftiness of it a little bit and create a little bit of, again, variation and interest in that facade. And I will note that you can see in this rendering as well, if you look all the way to the left, the open balconies, again, was a very intentional move to kind of soften the corner of the building, open that up to the pocket park itself and create a little bit more transparency in the building. And then the last thing I'll note in this rendering is the top floor, which we've set back even further from the front of the building, kind of created that with a softer materiality on the front of it to really soften that top floor and create a little relief and a little less bulk to the building itself. So this rendering, you can see kind of on Ridge Avenue again, but now looking at the pocket park. So from the other side of the building. And, as I mentioned already, what you see in the corner there is that we've kind of softened that edge, create some transparency from looking the other way. But what that also does is we've created on both sides of the pocket park, so the parking lot side and the Ridge Avenue side, we've created a very intentional place for a new mural. I know that the mural that's there now is something that the community really cares about, and we really care about it too. I'll say that my wife has done work for mural art. She's a muralist herself, so I'm very sensitive to the mural arts program. It's a great program, one of the best in the country, and it's something we want to embrace. And and give back to this building in some way, because, you know, losing that mural is a big deal. It really is. So we want to be thoughtful and really sensitive to how we give space back for a mural on this new building that'll kind of do the same thing that the current mural does, and gives an opportunity to kind of, you know, create a new version of that that we hope will be even better. This is a view from the parking lot side. So again, looking at the Pocket Park on the right, but from the parking lot side, and you can see the second half of the mural. So, and I'll just switch back here. What you can see, which I didn't mention, is that we're actually, because of the way the building is shaped, where it's kind of horseshoe shaped, what we've done is kind of capped both ends of the building with our location for the new mural. So you actually get two murals. And, you know, obviously, I think we would like them to kind of work in tandem and work almost as, you know, signposts for the Pocket Park itself, and really integrate what's so great about the Pocket Park with what's so great about mural arts, and how we kind of treat that mural, and who the artist will be. All of that, we really want to be sensitive to the community and to the building at large. So looking back again at this view from the parking lot, you can see the Pocket Park. You can see in the middle of the building where that we've given back actually some space to create more Pocket Park. And, you know, we're proposing a raised planter with a bench on it. So we want to create a lot of public seating and a lot of opportunity for more greenery. And then, yeah, we've actually also kind of extended that Pocket Park, as you can see, in front of the building a little bit, to create, you know, a little bit of a softer edge between where the Pocket Park stops and the parking lot starts. Yeah, so there's a view in the Pocket Park, and again, same idea. You're looking at that kind of opening that we're creating, and what we're actually doing in that opening is giving opportunity for another mural. So the where the Pocket Park actually extends into our building, on that first floor, there's a great opportunity for another piece of art from Mural Arts. And again, something that we want the community kind of to be proud of and feel like they're, you know, it's part of the community fabric. So, you know, it's a great opportunity to bring that life into the Pocket Park again itself. And yeah, and then, you know, what you can see there is that we're injecting a lot of light and natural daylight through windows into the commercial spaces on this ground floor, so that we really start to feed the energy from these commercial spaces. Again, if they're restaurants, you're going to get a lot of energy from people eating, and you know, going out and having a good time, and having that energy kind of feed into the space will make it feel like a continuation of the public space into the building itself. So we really want to, again, just bring the energy to the street, create a lot of nice soft lighting so that it feels warm and inviting for people walking through in all directions. Create some public seating options. Again, we've got that raised planter in the middle of the new kind of extension of the Pocket Park. And then, yeah, the way that, you know, these restaurants could potentially spill out into the Pocket Park, the way that New Ridge Brewery does now, is really just going to create a lot of energy and just make it a much more successful public space. This view is from the Leverington facade. So a few things that we've done here. One, it's kind of hard to see, but you get a sense a little bit of where we've set that building back so that it is in line with the houses next door. We've created some commercial space on this level as well, which can, you know, be a little bit separate from the Ridge Avenue commercial corridor, but still feel connected to the building in some way. And again, it's all commercial space on that ground floor. Yeah, and then you also kind of get a sense of how we've set that building back on the top floor. So this kind of leg of the building that's on the Leverington side, we've actually cut the 5th floor out of that altogether. So there's, you know, a slightly lower building height on this side. again, being sensitive to the neighbors and wanting this to not feel so daunting and so so much like it's we're just building a skyscraper here. So, and then with that top floor, again, we've set it back. We've chosen a softer material of wood cladding there to again, make it feel less bulky and a little bit more sensitive to its surrounding context. Yeah, and then the last thing I can point out here, so the shape of our building again is kind of horseshoe shaped with that opening facing the pocket park. So on the ground floor, you've got that kind of indent that you can see with the raised planter, with the tree in the middle, with the restaurants kind of opening up onto both sides and the mural kind of facing that. And then beyond that, what we've done is we've opened that up even further. So even though technically that is public space, our idea here is that this facade, each of these floors actually sets back a little bit further. And the idea is that, you know, even from standing in the pocket park, that this building kind of opens itself up a little bit and again, doesn't feel like it's going to be too much of a wind tunnel or feel like it's too much encroaching on the public space. We're actually opening up the building in terms of its perspective from standing in the pocket park. And the idea here with those setbacks is there would also be balconies for these units with the potential for planters on them. So again, we want to really green up that center of the building as much as possible and kind of, you know, really create some public space that kind of bleeds into the building itself. Yeah, and then, you know, this is just a view, aerial view from the other side. Again, you get a sense of the shape of that building and where we've set it back. So you can see on Ridge Avenue, the sidewalk's wider than it is now. So, you know, we've set it back an extra 5 feet. Same thing on the Leverington side, where we've set that building back to kind of line up with the houses. And yeah, that's all I have to say about that. Yeah, so site plan we've gone over. These are elevations. Another thing to point out is, you know, we've been sensitive to the choice of materiality throughout the building. So you can see in these elevations, and we've got some rendered ones as well. Yeah, so, you know, we chose a style and a color of brick deliberately. That's meant to kind of echo the colors that are in Wissahick and schist, which is a very common building material, you know, in Philadelphia at large, but especially in Roxborough, so close to the Wissahickon itself. So that's kind of the main building material. We wanted something that felt kind of substantial and not like you know, a developer is just throwing up cheap like EIFS panels or something. This wants to be a substantial building and something that kind of matches the scale of it and also kind of the surrounding context of the neighborhood. So we're real sensitive to what we chose and having that kind of fit into the context of Roxborough at large. So we've done that, and then we've kind of, as a way to kind of create some relief on those facades, we've also kind of created a secondary material palette where we're still kind of expressing the structure of the building from the outside and kind of breaking it up in a similar way to the way we're breaking up the brick facade in terms of different types of window treatments, kind of creating some interest and some variation in the elevation itself. So that explains kind of the two material palettes that we've done. It's again done in a way to help create a little bit of levity and break in the building itself. Yeah, and I guess that's Rich, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, and show the Ridge Avenue facade, and you know, I want to show the Ridge Avenue facade, you know, really point out that we want to make this, you know, relate to Roxborough. Roxborough has its own aesthetic, its own look, as Lance pointed out, with you know, the Wissahick and schist, and even the brick in Roxborough is more gray. So it's a warm gray brick matching the aesthetic of Roxborough versus like a red brick, like you would find in Center City, perhaps. And then the recessive fifth floor being a warmer material, wood, and then the balconies, we have some brick, some accent brick, special charred black brick. And here you can see the retail, and along Ridge Avenue. And as Lance said, there's 21,000 square feet of retail. The two end units are specifically designed for restaurants. They will have exhaust that goes up through the building, exhausting up on the roof versus out a sidewall. So we believe it'll really enhance the experience of the Pocket Park. One thing I also want to mention, Lance mentioned, was the building's also set back 5 feet on the Pocket Park side. So actually adding another 5 feet to the Pocket Park than currently exists now, plus the 1,300 square feet of the courtyard that we're adding back to the Pocket Park. So yeah, so hand this back to Eric.
Sure. Thank you, everybody. Yeah, thank you, Rich and Lance, for the presentation. I think that, yeah, adequately covers it. I mean, just generally speaking, high level, it's, it really is the, removing apartments from the first floor, maximizing the amount of commercial space that we can put there in the heart of the commercial corridor, creating as much ample parking as possible. I mean, garage parking is not permitted. That's why it was never proposed originally. There's an overlay that prohibits it. So that's part of, what we've been discussing and going over about ways to make this better. And going back to when I say they're, zoning constraints. I think the ability to be very mindful, and I've done a few of these presentations, and I know it's always a question of where's the trash coming, how are people getting in and out, how are they loading and unloading their packages, they're going to clog up the streets. We're fortunate with this location that we have a good area that we're able to, create a loading and unloading zone, not only for residential, but also for commercial, especially for 21,000 square feet. Something that takes it off of Levington and off of Ridge Avenue, create, a good trash management location where people aren't seeing it, where trash trucks aren't in their way, and that people can get deliveries and do move-ins and move-outs, again, minimizing that impact. Yes, the garage entrance to get down to the lower garages off of Levington, but again, that was purposeful as well. We don't want to be doing that onto Ridge Avenue. We know Ridge Avenue is busy. And you want to put it on, the least busy street as possible. We did want to, soften, the look, setback. I mean, these are significant setbacks, coming off of Ridge Avenue. I think at the widest point, at the opening of the Pocket Park, it's actually like 12 feet setback from where the Pocket Park line is to where the building begins. And Ridge Avenue is set back, yes, that additional 5 feet, but I think that gives you, it's almost like 23 feet of space overall. So it's like the building is really pushing itself away and trying to enhance and build that walkability. And then the murals were an important part of it. I think we wanted to be able to put it, we're not trying to copy what was there before. I think there's a artistic way of doing this that utilizes the space. But even this horseshoe idea that was proposed here by this is actually a flip from the way it was before. The horseshoe faced Levington as opposed to the Pocket Park, and this kind of enhances the commercial corridor in that sense that there's a lot of natural light, there's a lot of openness inside that park, because as of right now it does feel very tight. I know the RDC does a lot of events there, and it is a little bit cramped. So we want to open that up, let in that natural light, make it somewhere you just kind of naturally walk into, and create these seating areas and whatnot. I feel like any real commercial corridor has these kinds of amenities and features built into the landscape of the area, and that's what we're trying to do here. So yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of a good overall. I'll let John take it from there.
Thank you, gentlemen. At this point, we'd like to invite anybody who has questions of the development team to please raise your hand and we'll recognize you in turn. Use the reaction button on the bottom of your screen. And we'll just take people as they come. Liz, you are the first person to have your hand up. Please go ahead. You may be muted.
Great, thank you. I have a lot of questions, so I'll just start by asking a couple of factual ones. How many units is this?
94 units.
So it's gotten even larger?
Yes, the original proposed was 82 units and now it's 94. I think, you know,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
yeah, no, I mean, I guess part of this will be, right, this is part of a conversation. You know, I know people don't like to hear about how much things cost sometimes, you know, but just, you know, but it is a big part of, you know, being able to do something of this. This is a very substantially more expensive project. And really, this has been part of a lot of the back and forth over the last year to find a way forward that we think would be a good project for all. You know, I know parking is hypercritical, and like I said, there was only 17 parking spots that were there before, but again, we were restrained by zoning. Part of this is there is a variance required to have an underground parking garage. It's not permitted otherwise. To add an underground parking garage that has 71 apartments, 71 parking spaces, is a very substantial cost. You know, the original building was slab on grade. It's much less expensive to do that than doing an underground parking garage.
Right.
There needs to be, you know, factors that, you know, assist in the development. Now, this is, yes, it's 12 more apartments. I promise you 12 more apartments doesn't pay for the underground parking garage, but we get a little bit closer. We did ask for over 100 apartments and we were, you know, snapped down, and, you know, we went back and forth. There's been a lot of, you know, back and forth in trying to find a project that works and running the numbers and ensuring it. So we did have to remove the apartments that were on the first floor and they needed to go somewhere. And we needed to create some density to, you know, justify some of these expenses. I mean, the facade is definitely not inexpensive, but you know, and especially the amount of glass that's now on the first floor. But, you know, underground parking garage is probably the most significant cost as part of this. And we need to be able to carry that.
Of the ground, the surface parking spaces that are currently there, are you going to take up with this?
Well, there's no parking currently on the site.
In the back, the parking lot that's behind this building.
Oh, none of those spots. No, that belongs to the RDC. That's not, we're not taking any of those spots.
Okay. Would you be willing to consider these things? I'm assuming that the energy efficiency standard of this building does not exceed code. Is that correct?
Yeah, no, it meets code performance requirements.
It does not exceed code. Is that right?
Oh, you mean like exceed performance or baseline performance is what you mean?
Not going for LEED certification. You're not going for Energy Star. You're just meeting code. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, look, I know this comes up a lot in a lot of these conversations, you know, about these buildings. What I would argue, you know, I'm a lead AP myself. We are very considerate of the energy efficiency. I mean, the building code itself for Philadelphia is.
No, a lot of people have a lot of questions for you, so it's okay. You can shorten your responses.
The long story short, it meets at minimum. I mean, we haven't done the full building. You know, it's hard for me to say because I haven't done the building plans for it yet. But generally speaking, these buildings are very efficient buildings.
Okay.
This is not
an
inefficient.
And this doesn't have to be, you don't have to answer it tonight, but a green roof is very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
It adds almost nothing to the energy efficiency of the building. Would you consider instead solar, for which you can qualify for federal incentives now through the Inflation Reduction Act? You don't have to answer. I know it's a complicated question and you have to.
I have an answer.
But I'm just asking you to consider it, because in the long run, environmentally, it will be a much greater asset to you. It will pay for itself. So it'll be much better for your bottom line, and it's much better for the environment. So just, just stick that on the list of things to think about. And then I have one final question, which is also something you'll have to think about. The post office is extremely valuable to the neighborhood. It's extremely important. We've had a lot of difficulty stabilizing the post office. Would you consider, since you've got a lot more 21,000 square feet of commercial space on the first floor, would you consider incorporating the post office somewhere in this building? So that's all the time I'm going to take up.
Yeah, I'll answer those two really quickly.
Okay.
So the post office is actually relocating to another one of the projects that we work on. I think everyone got a notice in the mail that was sent out by them about their relocation, which would be the 6808 Ridge Avenue, which is up by ShopRite. So they're in the process of preparing for the relocation, and we've been working with them. As far as the green roof, what I would say is the green roof actually is very efficient. It's a lot. It adds a great deal of insulation and also the solar heat gain effect and things of that nature. But the reason that a green roof exists on that building, apart from those, is that it's a requirement of the water department when you disturb greater than 15,000 square feet for stormwater management. The only way this building is permitted to be built in the size that it is because we are managing the stormwater. I think it's important to think about that when we think about the heavy rainstorms that we get. The idea behind stormwater management is that this roof will drink the water that comes from a major storm and mitigate a lot of the water getting down into the storm system. So it's actually a very important part of what it does for city infrastructure, and it helps, extend the life and time of the stormwater systems in the building. Unfortunately, solar panels on top of that then actually negates the effect of the green roof. So it's kind of like,
it does not.
it's a tough one.
It's a longer conversation. So we could have that if you're interested.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Liz. We have a couple other people with their hands up right now. Patrick Hammonds is next, and then Jeff Goldman. Patrick, would you like to go?
Thanks. The designs are great. I had some questions about just the commercial space. So the way it currently is, we have like 6 storefronts. And this I'm losing count as far as how many actual units there are for commercial use.
Well, I think the commercial is kind of, it's chopped up in a way that you would expect there to be about 3 restaurants maybe, and then you have the 2 commercial spaces on Leverington, but that's really up to whoever the operator is. I mean, they're all subdivisible, or they could take all of it. It's not like there's a specific, idea in mind, but I think like Lance said, I mean, they deal heavily with restaurants and understand, basic sizes. And I think Lance's intention and Richard's intention was, about 3 restaurants, and we have the stacks going up to the roof to kind of, take care of those kitchens and address that demand should it arise.
Okay, so it's 3 restaurants.
There could be up to there could be up to 9 commercial spaces.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's counting what's on Leverington, the 2 on Leverington.
Correct. Yeah, correct. And then 2 to 3 at the parking lot side.
Okay. Yeah, that's helpful. When I saw the old designs, it seemed like there was more storefronts, and then when I saw the ones without this explanation, I was worried that we were losing that. So otherwise, it looks good.
Thank you, Patrick. Eileen, you are next. No, actually, Eileen, hang on. Jeff Goldman, you had your hand up for a moment, and as you seem to have vanished. Are you still interested in asking a question?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Eileen, you are next. And you may be muted.
So I have a couple questions. Number one, I want to clarify. Excuse my ignorance. It is already approved that an apartment building can go up in this space despite the myriad congestion issues in our neighborhood. Am I correct?
Yes.
All
those are
we're
approved
talking
projects.
about is the design.
No. So there's, I mean, John, do you want to take this, or do you want me to?
Sure, yeah, let me start and you can fill in. So Eileen, yes, this property has been zoned for as mixed use, commercial and residential for quite a number of years, even though it isn't, the residential has not been realized. So they bought several parcels and consolidated them, and the zoning was adjusted during that consolidation, but it still retained their right to build residential units on top of commercial space.
Okay,
So
so
that is
that
a-
part
that is by
is a
right.
fait accompli.
Correct.
So the second thing is this whole idea of restaurants. Now, other than kind of fast food restaurants in this area, we have never had any fine dining in Roxborough. And I want, well, we have the white, but we've had no fine dining. So are we thinking these are going to be a bunch of kind of fast food sort of places? I mean, the White Yak is a little different, but is that what we're envisioning? And also, where will the parking be for these restaurants?
Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
Yeah, we're really envisioning these two restaurants, specifically the one on Ridge, being more of a fine dining restaurant, something you may see in Center City, because it's a larger footprint, and so it's not the size of a fast food place.
So
It's
they'll
got-
look across at the Dunkin' Donuts. We'll get a fine dining restaurant across from the Dunkin' Donuts.
And we'll get one across from New Ridge Brewing here, which has a very
I'm
good
just
dining
asking how
program.
realistic this vision is.
I think Roxborough is ready for this. I mean, Roxborough, as we all know, has changed a great deal. And that's why we think that this is a really important project to get right, and why we've been really working hard on this. I mean, we don't have any and I don't have anyone promising me that they're coming in to do something specific just yet, but I've definitely had some encouraging conversations about an opportunity for a good, like a New Ridge. Like, when you say fine dining, I mean, to me, it's just like a good restaurant that serves decent food that people want to, come and, hang out at, and then they move on their day and they just, walk from down the street, and it's a nice local restaurant that they want to be at. I don't think it's any kind of like big chain or like something super fancy, but something like New Ridge. I think New Ridge has done very well, and I think, and a big thing, I think John can speak to this, or the CR, the zoning code really kind of minimized how big your commercial spaces could be, and a lot of what exists on Ridge Avenue is limited in its size, so there hasn't really been an opportunity in Roxborough to create this kind of square footage that would provide an opportunity for a restaurant, of this type or nature. And this is an opportunity there, and I do think Roxborough is ready for that.
And do we have a parking for this place or these places?
Well, I mean, we do have the underground parking garage. That's probably predominantly.
No, that's for the
residential.
residents.
Yeah.
You have
but
70
I
some
think-
parking places for 90 some spots. And if this is a rental, many of those spots will have two people with two cars.
Yeah.
Where they going?
Yeah, I think that's the nice thing about this location, is that it's actually, right behind it is a, parking lot, and just across the street from it is another parking lot. That there are very few locations in the city that have that kind of access to available paid parking. So that I think is another bonus. I mean, it doesn't.
And I'm sorry, I did one last question, if I may. As I understood it from the piece of mail I received, the moving of the Roxborough post office was still a question awaiting public comment. It wasn't agreed that it was moving to your other place. Am I incorrect?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the red tape of the post office. I mean, honestly, dealing with them on kind of getting the lease and having had this conversation has also been, a year in the making. And again, part of it, where it stemmed from was the reaction, and people were concerned about the post office, and they were like, "You need to find a home for it." And we really worked really hard with the post office to find them locations, and they happen to like our location, and wow, it's been fun dealing with them in this. And but yeah, you're right.
And
They have to
what
go
if
through
the
their red
neighborhood
tape
doesn't
to get
want
there.
it moving up the street? It wants it where it is. So I understand it can't be there while you're tearing down the whole site.
Yeah, no, they are excited about the location.
Okay, so then,
Eileen, could
this
I,
is your issue. Then this whole thing about giving public statement to the post office relocation is just, excuse my expression, a bunch of bullshit because it's already been decided.
It's
Eileen,
going
I
through
think
the
the
process.
post
I'm not
office,
familiar with like how exactly it works, but I know they're going through the process.
all right, Eileen, is that enough of questions?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. The next person with their hand up is Kara.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
My question is more about aesthetics. And first of all, I do applaud you and I thank you for cutting the corners with the balconies. One of my basic issues is the cube going up, a gray cube, gray and black. So that's one. But my question is basically about your material palette. In material palette number 1, the wood paneling seems to be gray, which would mean the aesthetic is still gray, gray, gray. However, in your sketch, it looks very warm up there, and I think that's an important issue. And I just did want to clarify that with the wood paneling, you're going more with a warm tone that would go in with the two bookended
Yeah,
buildings.
that's correct. Yeah, it's just like in this rendering, you can see
In the
more of the
rendering.
the warm wood tone.
Okay, and the
So
other
yeah, less gray.
less gray, more warm. And the other question I had was in your material palette number 2. Could you speak a little about the metal flecked access panel? What is that?
So that's a metal fleck accent panel, and really it's just a colored metal panel. So we're going for this kind of to kind of match the warm tones of that wood. Actually, we're going for like a
Clay?
yeah, like like kind of a clay kind of
Yeah, more of a
Okay.
bronze, like a warm bronze, like a dark warm bronze versus a black.
Okay, great. Those were the only questions I had about the aesthetics. The only last question is the exit of your parking onto Leverington. I'm just, wondering if there would be any congestion. But if you've given thought to that, cars exiting. But other than that, I do have to say, I do really appreciate you making this not a cube, changing the setback of the top floor, and like I said, those corners. Because overall, it's much more aesthetically pleasing. So that's all I have to say. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Kara. Liz, I'm going to skip over you for a second, and because Jeff Goldman hasn't had a chance to ask a question yet. So Jeff, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just curious, how much outdoor seating, permitted outdoor seating from these restaurants, do you anticipate, or are you encouraging or discouraging? Thank you.
I mean, Lance and Rich, I kind of defer to you.
Yeah, there would only be the outdoor seating within the courtyard. So it'd be about 20 to 25 seats in there. There could be some movable outdoor seating in the courtyard in the pocket park, but that would be more public seating like it exists now. So if you can see in this rendering, the seats, the chairs in front here, more like public, but the ones behind, those are within the property, that 5-foot setback, so that would be specific to the restaurant. So about
Kind of like currently what exists presently.
correct.
So, but you don't, it's not going to be like East Passyunk Ave or Center City with just a gauntlet of
No.
diners,
No, it's not gonna be like 50,
Okay.
60 seats. No,
right? What did you say? Sorry.
it's not gonna be like 50 or 60 seats.
Okay.
Like, yeah. It's gonna
Thank
be
you.
limited.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Zach Torres, you're up.
Hey, thank you very much. Just a quick question in regards to, as this is being built, will Stokes be involved in a construction admin job basically throughout this to make sure the appropriate materials are being used as it's proposed, basically to keep the design intent that we're seeing today? Will Stokes be involved throughout that?
Yeah, well,
Yes.
Stokes is part of this project through the end.
Yeah, we're gonna see it through the end. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Just sometimes, people they promise you, one thing, and then when it gets built, it gets value engineered real quick. So
Yeah. We'll be there, through the end.
cool. Thank you. That's it.
Thanks, Zach. Liz?
Are there any affordable housing units in the project?
There are not.
I'm sorry,
There are not any affordable units.
there are not. And from this rendering, it's clear that a number of trees are going to be removed that are currently in the park. Can you increase the number of trees that you have?
Well, I think the RDC would be very angry with me if I did that. No, I mean, yeah, that's the problem with rendering sometimes. I mean, they're kind of computer generated. It's not taking a real live look. But we're not disturbing the pocket park itself. A lot of the plantings that you see is actually because we set the building back. So like I said, even at the Ridge Avenue site, it's like 12 feet set back. So where the arch is, for where you enter, and then it kind of tapers back as we narrow the building. But a lot of those plantings are new in addition to the existing plantings, but we're not removing anything that exists on the pocket park. This building is set far back enough. What we're going to do is we're going to match the pavers and make the look feel uniform, and then add additional, plantings, to the area.
Yeah, I want to mention that our landscape architect was part of the original team that designed the original pocket park and the planting.
That's great. And my last question is about the mural. Your current rendering is a little better than the last one that I saw, that frankly I described as a squiggle. But to be frank, bad art is worse than no art. So would you consider having an advisory committee, which would include some members of the neighborhood who would, have some qualification, I presume, to advise you on the final artist selection or rendering? Or, to be frank, what you're showing now is a little bit offensive. So I don't want to, get into an argument.
Liz, can I interrupt?
Can I address this?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, please.
Okay.
RDC has a lot to say on this matter.
Yeah. Hi. I haven't met many of you. I'm the new executive director of the RDC. Though Liz, I do know you well. I worked for you years ago
Hi.
at ECA.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We are already in talks with Mural Arts. What we will be doing with Mural Arts, with some members of the community, members of the developer, New Ridge Brewing Company, and some other near businesses, is forming an advisory committee to select 3 to 4 artists that will then present it to the greater community to help us select these. So these are merely placeholders that are mimicking the colors that already exist in the Pocket Park. Please do not look at these renderings and think that that is what the mural is going to look like.
Okay. Good.
So we're way on top of that. We've been talking about that since I started.
Great. Thanks.
Okay, Liz, have you asked all your questions?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you. Anvesh, you are next.
Hey, just a quick question. What is the proposed construction timeline for this?
I'd say this would be looking to start sometime in the spring. Pardon me, 24.
Okay, and what do you think would be the end date if you start in spring next year?
For the underground parking garage, getting out of the ground is always the hardest part. I would say around 14 to 16 months. I mean, we usually build pretty quickly, but it always comes down to what rock you hit, how much hammering you got to get through it. But generally speaking, I think that's a fair timeline.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I just want to ask a quick question. Lacey, do we have questions queued up in the chat that we might be able to address now?
I think all the co-hosts can see the chats. It may be that the co-hosts can each see their own private messages, but as far as I know, all chat questions have been redirected to the form where all the questions are being collected by the co-hosts.
I'm not seeing it though, so if you could look around for that a little bit more, I can't find it.
Well, we have a sheet with all of the questions that have been submitted.
Oh, are those in the Google form?
There's a Google Sheet link. And I'll be sure that all the co-hosts have that.
Okay, great. While you hunt that down and send that to us, let's move on to Justin Mendoza. You had your hand raised?
Yes, hi, thank you. I didn't see what the first iteration of this project looked like, so I'm glad to hear that some considerations were made to take all of these factors into account, and also it seems terrifying that it didn't take that into account initially. It almost seems like the scope of this project with the density doesn't really fit this site and the zoning.
Right.
So, I mean, that's a major concern that we're trying to re-engineer it, given all of these constraints. It just seems like it's doesn't fit what you're trying to.
Residential doesn't mean
I'm sorry, if
an
I could just
apartment
finish.
building.
Sure, if I could just finish. So just making that comment, and I think that's why you're getting a lot of feedback, is because it seems outsized for this space. And I understand that the post office is relocating. I imagine that's due to the profit motive for this site. And also, I guess I'm curious, my question would be, given the profit motive for these commercial spaces, I imagine it will be cost prohibitive for a lot of the businesses that supposedly are going to end up in these spaces. And so I just sort of feel like we'll end up with a bunch of empty storefronts, like a lot of these projects do. You can see that further down on Ridge and lots of other places. So if you have any comments to any of those points, I'd appreciate it. Thanks.
Sure. I mean, I'll try to, there was a lot to cover there, but no, I mean, in response to the density question, I mean, this is zoned for this type of density. So, yes, it was 82 units that's approved. This is 94. And like I said, there is a cost factor to what we can put here. I know changing, this part of Ridge Avenue is difficult and people have a hard time, but I think if we look at truly what's there currently, and what that use of that space is, and what an opportunity Ridge Avenue has and Roxborough has, I think this is a much better product than what's there now. There are, you know, sacrifices and trade-offs that take place here. And again, you know, construction is, anytime I do any presentation, it doesn't matter what the building looks like, I feel like I'm told no. But I think it's important that, and this is a scenario where, you know, we all sit down and really try to work something out together that we think has opportunity. You know, yes, there is change coming, but I think this is much better change and a good opportunity. You know, the post office was at the end of their lease. They were looking to move as well. So, you know, it's not profit motive. I think post office has their own agenda as well. And we were fortunate to, you know, find an opportunity for them that met their needs. We do our best to really try and, you know, be cognizant and aware of, you know, the impact that these projects have and try to, you know, make it work as much as possible.
Thank you, Eric. Anne Levering, you had your hand up?
Yes. I'm just concerned. Eileen made a lot of comments and concerns that I had. And I was just wondering the traffic there. I mean, almost gotten hit just crossing Ridge Avenue and people making left-hand turns from Leverington on down to Ridge. And it's a really busy street, Leverington. People going from Henry Avenue to the Expressway and the other way. And also you said this construction is going to take about 14 months or so. Will you be making Ridge Avenue one lane there? Will you be bringing the traffic and all that time? Because it is a very vital area. And just what do you plan to do and while you're constructing all this?
Fortunately, we have access in the rear part of the building, so really I see very little traffic coming in off of Ridge Avenue for any of this construction. I mean, yes, there will be an impact without question, and there are moments where we have to do the sidewalk or there's stormwater connections and water line connections that will inevitably take place. I believe we're tapping off of Leverington. That's where we were told, and that at least reduces it coming off of Ridge Avenue. But you know, there will be no, you know, only for those connections that have to go for utilities. Otherwise, the actual construction of the building, and again, those utility connections takes about a week. So I'm not talking, we're not 14 months here. You know, I think we've all seen it where Ridge Avenue is blocked off, the police are there, you move it, but you know, that's usually done within a week. You know, what I'd say here is no, there'll be scaffolding up. There might be some pedestrian relocation to the shoulder, but there will be the Jersey barriers, those are orange barricades set to ensure that pedestrian traffic continues along Ridge Avenue, avoiding having to cross the street or anything, you know, obnoxious like that, which I know is a big impact. You know, people pushing strollers, people in, you know, wheelchairs, things of that nature. We want to maintain, you know, a clear access, especially on Ridge Avenue in this corridor. A benefit too, you know, in a weird way, you know, shrinking and setting back this building actually makes that a lot easier to do as well. So we're pretty far off of Ridge Avenue. And same thing from Leverington. We're very far off of Leverington. So we'll be able to safely, you know, barricade and redirect traffic without it really having an impact. I'd say for the most part, you'd be able to use the, you know, the regular sidewalk because of.
I'm more concerned about traffic. It's already a mess the other way. And, you know, now it's going to be one way or so, you know, or slow. And, you know, it's just, I'm more concerned about the traffic than the sidewalks.
Okay.
Any
There
comments?
will undoubtedly be traffic impact when the roads have to be open for utility connections, like Eric said, but for the most part, the roads will be left open because they'll be loading from the parking lot. But there are several other people with hands up, so if we can catch those folks first, is that okay?
Sure, I'm finished. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Molly, did you have a question?
It's actually my mom has the question.
Oh, cool.
Hi, this is Nancy Lawton. I live a block away from this project. I live on Leverington Avenue, a block in going towards Henry Avenue. So there's two questions I have. One is, what is the total number of units that has gone up in the last several years between Levington Avenue and Green Lane? Because the burden just seems to be exponential here, especially this set of units that were placed on top of the storefronts on the opposite side of Ridge Avenue, and they do not have parking. So that has increased the parking burden on us, block off. And secondly, what kind of security or how is the Pocket Park courtyard set up to help prevent, which now we have a problem in Roxborough with the homeless. There's somebody camping out or was recently camping out at the library. So the vagrancy issue here in the neighborhood has increased. And what is going to be provided as far as security in that courtyard and Pocket Park with the new construction?
Thank you for those questions.
I'm sorry.
Eric, I think it's hard to answer questions about the other developments in the area because we're here really tonight to talk about this one.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I could say for the, I think we'll obviously have to be mindful about, how, depending on the restaurant and what, furniture is utilized in the, in the Pocket Park, it'll be a consideration of what's removable, what can be stored inside and not. But, I mean, that's all I can really, speak to. The rest I'm not.
Could we maybe, Jax, could you talk a little bit about how you manage security at the Pocket Park today?
Yeah, so at the moment, most of the security is with cameras and New Ridge being pretty actively open. We have seen an increase, as Molly mentioned, or Nancy mentioned, I'm sorry, in some issues. And so we are actively looking at solutions that RDC can take on to make it a more secure parking lot and park for all. And I think, RDC and Eric and his team have been actively talking about how this is all going to work once the park and the courtyard are finished and how it's going to be managed. And that is an active part of the conversation, but we're not fully there yet to be like, this is 100% what we're going to do. But it is in my radar and it is something I am actively working on and talking not just with Eric and his team, but with the 5th district, our state and city reps, and trying to get on top of it as much as I possibly can.
Just want to mention with having the idea of having these two restaurants here with the glass and more kind of eyes on the Pocket Park, and hopefully a restaurant that would be open well into the evening, more of a fine dining style restaurant. You mentioned New Ridge Brewing, the people there. So the more people using this and instead of having like, blank wall or a store that's, closed at 6, that would potentially help, I think, with security.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you. It sounds like at least some of our team members are seeing the chats that have come through. So would one of the folks that can see the chats bring those questions forward so that the development team can answer them?
Yeah.
There was a question about having the possibility of having a secure mail drop made for people. We've got a problem with mailboxes being broken into, and if our post office is going away, is there a way to work with the post office to have, I don't know, it would be an ancillary or something more secure than just a blue mailbox, but something to replace that for us?
I mean, that would be a post office question. I mean, I'm not sure how they would address that.
But perhaps you could bring it to them, maybe.
Okay, absolutely.
Celeste, were there other questions?
Yeah, I'm seeing James Doherty asked a question, and maybe James, if you're here still, if you could clarify it, but I'll read what you wrote, which is traffic and SEPTA bus routes. How will this impact the communities in and out of the 4th district? So is there a specific concern that you can identify, James?
I don't see him in the meeting right now, so it may not be possible to clarify that question.
And then, I mean, does anybody want to say anything in regard to, I mean, SEPTA is a different subject, so it's his own subject. And unless RDC wants to somehow speak to this, I'm not sure what to say. Okay. Cynthia Perrone, who may or may not still be on, says, what exactly are you giving back to the community besides congestion and a planter and bigger sidewalks? A lot of our community buildings that used by our kids here need a lot of work. I don't understand how this is benefiting anyone but you. So Cynthia, if you're here, could you clarify what you mean by saying a lot of our community buildings that are used by our kids here need a lot of work? Again, I'm not sure if Cynthia's here.
I don't see a Cynthia in the list either.
Okay.
I don't see her, but Celeste, I have a comment on that I can answer just as part of it, is that Kendrick is undergoing, if people aren't aware, a huge renovation, unrelated to any of the development, but that is probably the building that is used by the community the most that seems to be in disrepair. And it's actually been delayed because they found a few more structural issues, but it's planning to open in the next few months.
That's great.
Yeah. So I'm excited to get in there and see what they did.
All right, well, I'm not seeing any more hands raised.
There
so-
are more questions that were raised in previous, previous to today.
Okay.
And I'll try to limit this to people who said they were going to come to this meeting. And some of them have been answered already. So let me, one comment, this is a great redesign. I especially like how more retail space has been added and that the Pocket Park will be expanded. Excellent. Matthew says, I know a lot of people will be negative regarding this change. I just want to emphasize how good this will be for our community. We need new stores opening and more foot traffic, and this will help to achieve a more vibrant community. This building looks great. The question about the post office, given that many people cannot easily drive from Central Roxborough to the new post office, I'm wondering if 6174 Ridge will provide a secure mail drop. Oh, that's the question Julia asked. I applaud the developers. This is Richard Hayden. I applaud the developers for the proposed design of 6174 Ridge. Their use of varied higher and exterior building materials, inclusion of balconies, and overall design aesthetic represents a major, capital MAJOR, improvement over the large Soviet-era architecture inspired new apartments on other blocks of Ridge Avenue. Maybe this can be the new standard when developers need variances. I support the project as proposed. I think that's really the bulk of it.
Great. All right, Liz, I see your hand up. One last question, or are you done?
I did just want to say this is a much better design. So the one before this was pretty horrendous. So thanks for the upgrade.
Thank you.
So Eric, before you and your team leave, could you give us a very quick, just by the numbers, summary of the variances that are being requested in this proposal so that we can leave with that clarity?
Okay, put me on the spot, yes. So there are 5 variances being requested for this project. Keep in mind too, what I would say is that this project was approved prior to a revision to the zoning code that's currently in effect. So that's why it's a little bit mismatched from what had been approved. But just having said that, the first variance being requested is for parking. Now there's, it would be 89 parking spaces required, 71 are proposed. Just as a reminder, in the approved plan, there's only 17 parking spaces. Variance number 2, garage parking is not permitted. It's only allowed in a surface lot. So in order to be able to fit the 71 parking spaces versus the 17, we need garage parking to be allowed. The number of apartments are permitted. That's variance number 3. There's 82 permitted, which is what is approved on the original proposal we did. We're requesting 94. Again, this is the cost basis for shrinking the building and being able to add the additional parking and enhancing and adding all of the glass and the commercial space on the first floor. Variance number 4 is the rear yard depth. 21 feet is required, 5 are proposed. This is really just as a result, twofold really. It's like to be able to, create that rear commercial parking, rear commercial space that's near the parking lot so that it really feels like a restaurant and is up, as part of the rest of the building, but also because of all of the additional setbacks. So setting back off of Ridge Avenue, setting off of Leverington, the 17 feet and 23 feet, and then 12 feet on the Pocket Park side, and then tapering back. So we needed to be able to still fit a building there. So that's why the rear yard depth is only at 5 versus the 21. And then the final variance is for building height. 38 feet is permitted by code, 49.8 feet is proposed. 0.8 feet is 9.5 inches. And again, this is in order to be able to fit a building that is financially capable of supporting the elements that are being shown here, and its success.
Right. Eric, Rich, Lance, thank you so much for your presentation. If there are no further questions and I don't see any more hands raised, then I think we can end this portion of the meeting and move on to the community conversation after our development team has left the room.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Yeah, thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. So